welcome back to News Center. Thank you very much for staying with us. All right, so our top story this morning, the MPs of members of parliament rather, are resuming sittings today after a short recess. And of course, top on the agenda really are those amendments. I want to have a conversation with two people. The first one joining me here in studio is Honorable Irungu Kang'ata, who's the Murang'a Senator. He's also the Deputy Chief Whip in the Senate. Asante sana kwa kuja. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We also have Omboko Milemba, who's the Emuhaya Member of Parliament. He's going to be joining us from our City Centre studio and is going to be ready in a few seconds. But let me start on here with Honorable Kang'ata. All right, so William Cheptumo's committee was able to hear views from Kenyans. First of all, during that time, I was wondering, are these submissions or the feedback that's given by Kenyans in any way going to influence the end product of this bill if it's passed?
Yes, it does, based on the history of the lawmaking since the commencement of the new constitution. It is a legal requirement that you call wananchi, they give their views. And from my own observation, I have seen they do influence the final product.
All right, so we're likely to see some of the things that were said going on to the last stroke.
Yes, indeed, there's no doubt about it.
It's not procedural.
No, it is not.
It's not procedural.
Because you see, we do not have a monopoly of ideas. In any event, the original bill was not even drafted by Parliament. More often than not, it is usually either something coming from the ministry, from the Attorney General, or even in instances where the majority leader or even a member of Parliament comes up with that proposal, it is always subjected to changes. So it can either be a change that has been initiated by a member of Parliament or a change that has been initiated by a private citizen.
All right. Now, in my intro there, we talked about Jubilee members of Parliament bulldozing because of the numbers, the tyranny of numbers that they have, in both houses, that, these amendments will, see the light of day, that the president will actually sign and assent these amendments to law. Is that what's going to happen?
Well, I don't want to anticipate debate from where I sit.
But I'm sure you know something.
No. You see, the point is, it is unfair for me to anticipate debate. But the point is, we shall accommodate all views. We invite our colleagues from the other side to come and give their views. But I can tell you the best idea is going to crystallize into law. So if that best idea comes from our side, so be it. The point is, I think... from where I see it personally as a senator, we need to do some legal changes prior to the fresh elections, which is slated on 26th of October this year. Because, one, there were some findings that were made by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Those findings needs to be corrected, and they can only be corrected in an institutional manner through legal amendments. Otherwise, if you fail to do that, you'll be opening yourself to possibility of the new election being nullified again by the Supreme Court.
But the issue is many people are criticizing the manner in which it was handled. And even, NASA leaders are coming out to say that, Jubilee is acting high-handedly because they came out with this and they did not want to hear anybody else's opinion. And they brought these amendments midway. It's like changing the rules, when a match is already ongoing.
No, you can't say that. Number one, as I have told you, the amendments, they are not there because per se we wanted. No, we don't mind the current laws. They are here because of a judgment that was made by Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court did not make such kind of a verdict, why change the law? But it is something that we are doing out of compulsion from the Supreme Court. Take, for instance, the issue concerning failure by some presiding officer to sign some forms, to stamp some forms, to use forms which do not have security features. That was a submission that was made by the NASA in court. That submission was accepted by court. And then there was, on that basis, that was one of the grounds which our victory was nullified. Surely, you want us now to go back, we do an election without providing for a procedure of punishing people who deliberately refuse to sign forms.
But is in that procedure already there? Is in that law already there that, these people must sign? So why did you have to have another law coming in
No, it is not there. You see what the law provides says the PO should sign, but there are no sanctions. The PO should, every form should have a stamp, but there are no sanctions. So if I'm a PO and I refuse to sign, what happens next? If I'm a PO and I refuse to stamp on a certain form, what happens next?
All right.
So that law is not there. What we are doing, and by the way, here we are talking about what we call criminal sanctions. In criminal law, you must provide for the offense and the penalty in express manner. You cannot leave that to ambiguity in criminal law. If you want to charge someone, if you want to ensure those people are going to do that which is supposed to be done, you must create an offense in law.
Right.
And that is exactly what you are doing. And unless NASA and some other people, they have something up their sleeves. But I don't see why they should be opposing that proposal.
But looking at that specific proposal, what if the presiding officer is not comfortable with the results that are on that form? Are they also going to be compelled to sign something that they do not see that is actually truthful and correct?
First and foremost, it is them filling up that form. It is not any other person. The issue is that you fill up, then you fail to sign. On that basis, the election is nullified. So if you're not comfortable with what is there, why even fill it up from the start?
All right.
Number two, there is always a certain column beyond your signature where you are supposed to put your remarks. So you can as well sign and say, I have a problem with this and this. But the point is, why fill up the form from the beginning if at all you had issues with what you are inserting there?
All right. We'll come back to the issue to do with the chair, because then, why do we have to limit his role or to mess up with what has been in the Constitution previously? But I just want us to bring in my other panelist, Omboko Milemba, who's the Emuhaya Member of Parliament. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the show. I'd just like to hear your thoughts about this amendments, and Jubilee Party really could be well on its way to bulldoze through these amendments. What's your take on this, looking at what's going to be happening today and tomorrow?
Oh, thank you very much, Betty. First, I'm Omboko Milemba, the MP for Emuhaya, but I'm also the national chairman of the teachers in Kenya under the umbrella of KUPPET. And therefore, in my submission here, I would really I found when you had really interviewed the other person who was at the other end, but I was able to get a little bit of his sentiments as regards the punishment that is being given to people who will be making election offenses, especially the returning officers, the presiding officers. But I also want to, in my prelude, indicate that my contribution, I would want it to be very fair in terms of helping Kenya move forward and not just arguing for the sake of winning for today. My take on these new laws is that they are not well intended. They are not well intended. And the last bit I heard you and my colleague from the other side comment was the amendment that requires the law to punish those who will not be either filling the forms, signing the forms, or for one reason or another, doing something with the forms. That's a very simple aspect of that particular law. And when I look at a little bit of the people arguing from the other side, they tend to give this particular item a lot of emphasis. But the reality is that are we there, Betty? Can you get me?
Yes, yes.
I was saying that, hello?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Are we there?
Yes.
Oh, yes. So I was saying that you should not overemphasize on the punishment that is going to be given to this particular person who is going not to fill the forms. Because there was a law already existing for people who may mess up and not fill the forms and so on and so forth. Number two, this is the easier part of the amendments that we are going to face today in Parliament. But the harder part of it, which is really going to change the political situation in Kenya, are back there dealing with the chairperson, dealing with the quorum, and the other aspect of this particular amendment. So I think I also like your challenge in your rebuttal to indicate that what about if this person who is supposed to be punished for not signing a form or not for whatever reason, if he's being compelled to sign? So we really must have some window that this person has a right of dealing with the aspect of signing the forms in the respect that maybe he'll be compelled or there'll be some undue force to him that he must sign.
All right.
But let me then go back to the real issue. The real issue in this law does not lie there. I'm holding it here. It lies, one, in the definition of the chairman. The chairman of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, powers are being reduced. And at another level, they are even envisaging that the chairman will not be there. How comes that when we went to the elections on 8th of August, nobody was envisaging that the chairman could not be there and therefore reduce his powers? This chairman is now being reduced to a welfare chairman, a welfare organizational chairman, where in the absence of such a chairman, you take a vice chairman. In the absence of the vice chairman, you could take any other member on that panel, if it is you, Betty, or myself, to act. But remember when we were interviewing this chairman, oh, you seem to want me to stop. No, when we were interviewing this chairman, we did interview the chairman separately from the other commissioners, meaning those other commissioners do not have the same stature as the chairperson of the commission. So you cannot reduce now and say that in the event the chairman is not there, you can use the vice chairman or you can use any other member within the commission. But let me hear from you.
Yes. Let me just get the reaction of Irungu Kangata. What is the reasoning behind stripping off some of the powers of the chair?
No, we are not. What we are only providing is a second emergency reality position in the event the chairman is absent.
But that was not the case before August 8th. What has changed?
Well, it's a realization that there's a major lacuna. You see, before that election, the president had full powers. But now we are talking of a president who cannot appoint any person into a constitutional office. And therefore, if there is a vacancy in the IBC, in the office of the chairman, then it will mean there will be no person who is going to do that replacement. Who does the replacement? Before then, the president could do the replacement. I'm sure you recall the advice that was given by the Attorney General explaining the situation, the powers obtaining of a president as we speak now. So therefore, to explain that, to ensure that in the event the chair, for any reason, resigns, for instance, then we don't have a lacuna. You have to provide a situation where the deputy can assume that office and have all the powers.
All right.
Because it's a reality, it's a possibility. And there'll be no one who is going to appoint a replacement.
Mboko, I'd like to
Thank you. I've gotten that. I've gotten that point very well, but you know what wonders why before 8th of August we did not think that the chairman could not be there? Why are we envisaging that the chairman now could not be there? You know, it's also very risky in the way it's being put, because somebody will say, would somebody abduct the chairman, or what is going to happen? But okay, let's look at it further down there. When it talks about the quorum change, you know, the IBC has 6 members, I think 66 members, and they are now reducing the quorum to 3, and saying that any decision by that particular commission is by the majority. But I want to specifically talk about that quorum of 3. We have seen this before. In 1927, that is 2007, when we had that Kibaki-Raila type of impasse, we saw a swearing in ceremony occurring at 7 in the night. Kenya had never seen that. There's a loophole in this law reducing the powers of this commission acting in totality as a whole, and now allowing any 3 commissioners to be able to make a quorum and move ahead and even announce the winner of an election, because 3 commissioners could move aside, declare that they don't know where the chairman is, where the vice chairman is, and give us results. It will throw us into a very serious constitutional crisis, and therefore, this is a very dangerous move that is being put here within the law. And still back on the powers of the chairman. There's a reason why originally the organic law thought that the chairman should be of a certain qualification. Now, the new amendments wants to reduce any person within the commission who can also act to be a chairman to simply have a simple degree. So when you look at the spirit and you look at the intention of the amendment, it is to simply fix the situation as it is now, maybe in favor of NASA or in favor of Jubilee.
Right.
And of course, the public can see who wants to be favored here. But that is dangerous for this country. But in 1966, this Odinga factor has been there for quite some time. And I want to talk about now the other Odinga who passed on.
Yeah, very quickly.
He went he disagreed with Kenyatta, the old Kenyatta. And they quickly rushed to amend the constitution of Kanu in one day, such that now the vice presidents of Kanu were going to be 8 instead of 1, and Odinga was one of them. This is what I can compare this to, vulgarizing the office of the chair so that any other person can act as the chair in the event the chair is not there. Thank you.
Interesting. And because, NASA leaders have come out strongly to oppose these laws, are we expecting that this time round, because during the ad hoc committee we did not see them, go there and give their feedback and also be part of that process, are we likely to see them sit in Parliament and actually oppose these laws, or is it going to be another boycott this coming today and tomorrow?
Oh, really, it is very important that the Kenyans understand what is going on and what it means, not only for the NASA supporters, NASA leaders, but for every Kenyan to understand that what is coming out. So it is better, and I'm sure the NASA leadership will be in Parliament, to raise these issues so that the Kenyans may understand properly what the law means for them as we go towards that particular direction. And that reminds me of the events of 1981. In 1981, there was the clamor for multi-party democracy. And indeed, some individuals, I think including the likes of the current Raila, had planned to introduce multi-party democracy on Wednesday of a particular week in 1981.
Right.
Do you know that the government rushed to Parliament and passed a law which made Kenya to be a de jure? The law was hurriedly done just exactly the same way this one is being done. The number of days was reduced from 14 to 1. The hearing period was also reduced for the public. And within 24 hours, Kenya was a de jure. It took 12 years to revert from a de jure to a multi-party democracy.
Right.
This is not very good for our history, and the judgment of history never stays very far.
All right. Your comment on that?
First and foremost, these proposed amendments have been supported by the IEBC, a vast majority of the proposals. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, it is only 2 clauses where IBC has expressed reservations. So therefore, it means everyone is happy, basically. If at all you have a situation where 80% of the proposals have been given some validation by the IBC, and that communication was even communicated by the chairman of the IBC. So I think from where I sit, if NASA was acting bona fide, what they should do... There's some noise there. Well, from where I sit, if NASA was acting bona fide, what it should do is to analyze each and every clause and give comments in respect to each clause. Because vast majority of these clauses are beneficial. In fact, they have been obtained from the submissions that were made by NASA in court and which were validated by the Supreme Court, and which then it follows we have to provide for a legal remedy to cure these problems. For instance, now that issue you are saying about the chair, what prejudice is going to be occasioned in the IBC if we provide that in the absence of the chair, the vice chair of IBC can act as the substantive chair? What is wrong with that?
Don't you think it's about the timing of this?
No. It's neither here or there. In fact, the more reason why it should be passed, as I have explained to you, that we have a situation...
Can I interject, Betty?
Let him just finish and then I can bring you in.
Hello?
The circumstances obtaining now are markedly different with those circumstances which were obtaining before 8th of August. I want to reiterate again. If you have a situation where one commissioner is not there or even the chair, you do not have a person to do a replacement as of now.
All right.
So therefore, you need to have a machinery to mitigate in such kind of an eventuality. That's a possibility.
All right. Omboko, you wanted to say something about that?
A commissioner was never a chairman. When the interviews were carried out, at no time was the qualifications of a chairman the same as that of a chair of a commissioner. So why do you want now, before we carry out fresh interviews, to now allow a commissioner who was never interviewed to be a chair? Because the chair should have been having the qualifications of the Supreme Court judge in Kenya. And indeed, we did not give that condition to all the other commissioners. Why do you want to bring him, elevate him to the level of the chair without taking note of that? There must have been an organic reason why we wanted the chairperson to have those qualifications. So already there's a wrong, it's wrong to argue that way.
All right, gentlemen, I'd like to continue with the conversation, and I want us to move forward. But Omboko, if these amendments are passed to law, are we likely to see NASA move to court?
Oh, thank you. And you know, history is so rich. It's not only the courts. So I take you back again to 1966. So what happens? When they decide that Odinga is among the 8 vice presidents, he had many options. For him, that particular time, he left KANU and formed KPU. That history, I leave it there to go like that. So there are many, many options. Let's look at the histories of 1981, when the KANU regime quickly rushes to make Kenya a de jure. What do the political class on the other side do? They kept the political fire on KANU for all the years until when the KANU government surrendered in 1992 or thereabout. So then what is likely to happen? And I can guess what will be happening today. Because I don't see change of heart, which I would really be desiring that both the leadership at the top, at the parliament, and every institution, including the Kenyans, exercise. Because this is our country, and we cannot continuously stand on two peripheries and not tackle the issues facing us. So we have several options. Court is one of them. If the court fails, it would mean that the political impasse we have will continue for a longer time, because that spirit will not die. And there could be many, many other options out of it. But as it is in Parliament, if the other side, my friends in Jubilee, will not see the sense and change, see that we need this country together, then it will mean this business will go on for a little bit much longer. I am advantaged to have taught history for about 27 years. And this is how political turmoils do begin in countries. I don't want to believe we need to go that direction. We need to come together and agree on a minimum bear that can move the country forward. Thank you, Betty.
All right, thank you very much. Mboko Milemba, the MP for Emuhaya constituency, joining us from our city center studio. Irungu, if I can just pick your mind on a number of issues as we wind up. So really, what's going to be the way forward if NASA decides to go to court? Don't you think that we're really doing rounds in this political environment and the happenings already happening right now?
Well, if NASA decides to go to court, it is its right. What I know, the judiciary is not supposed to issue an injunction against Parliament. I know we have a judiciary that is not really exercising its jurisdiction in a proper manner. It has become what we call an activist judiciary. But strictly speaking, judiciary ought not to issue an injunction. You can't injunct Parliament. Right. What you can always do as a court is to nullify laws once passed and assented to by the president. So, well, they're entitled to go to court. They're entitled to go and seek a review or even to have those laws declared unconstitutional. That is their right. We can't micromanage what they want to do. But number two, of course, they also have the second option of coming and participating in the debates. To me, that makes more sense. My friend Mwalim there argues that Raila needs to learn from history. The lesson from history is that Raila's path is not progressive. That it makes sense for people to be more humble. It makes sense for people to be more humble, to be more tactical. And for instance, Raila's father, you can see he took the same path. He never realized his goal of ascending to the presidency. That just like Deng Xiaoping used to tell the Chinese people, bide your time, hide your intentions, and you are going to achieve that which you wish to. But this idea of just fighting every time without having a certain grand plan, without knowing the importance that at certain times in life you have to compromise, I think is not good. It's not strategic in politics at all. And from where I sit, if I were to advise NASA, I would tell them, please stop demonstrations. They are not going to assist you at all. Two, start campaigning. Even assume you were to agree to each and every set of demands from NASA, assume you were to do that. Do you foresee them defeating us? They have not been addressing rallies. They have not been going anywhere to look for votes. They have only been coming here in Nairobi to issue press statement day in, day out.
But they're saying that what's the point of campaigning when the field is not fair for everybody?
But you must always have a plan B in politics. Even assume you were to agree to their demands. Surely, is that going to be helpful to them? And again, look here. One of their main demands was they wanted some stuff to be sidelined in preparing for 26th of October elections. That was granted to the best of my knowledge.
But Ezra Chiloba is still in the works somehow.
No, how? No, it was very clear. There was a statement that was issued by IBC which clearly said that they have now a special projects team which does not include Chiloba. So I think that's it. What else do they want?
All right.
And number two, they wanted the elections date to be changed. That has happened again. That was not our wish. As we were happy with the October 17th date, now they pushed for a new date to come into force. It has. So it appears they have been getting each and every demand that they want, but they seem not happy. They seem not to be campaigning.
Finally, are we likely to see Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga coming to the table to discuss and put this country forward? Because really, we're in this state because, you know, everybody wants their own demands met.
To discuss for what? I can even advise Uhuru, he should not even dream discussing anything with Raila Odinga for obvious reason. This is a competition. Why, personally, assuming, for instance, I'm Uhuru Kenyatta, I want to win this election. I know I have the people behind me. Why should I discuss with the person I'm about to defeat? Or my competitor thinks that he can defeat me. I want him to come to the field and fight me. Surely, you can only discuss with a person if you feel, one, you are weak politically, or for any reason that you want to cede power. But where you are about to win, the main prize, why discuss? And again, also, look here. The circumstances obtaining as of now is that Raila had won the Supreme Court case. So meaning, in fact, we are the one who are wounded. He ought to have appeared as of now strong.
Interesting. Thank